tense forms and more specifically about the simple present tense. So in today's class, we're likely to start tenses. So this particular video is on simple present tense. When I say simple present tense, it is actually about something that's happening right now. We're talking about something that's happening right now or about some general habits. When we talk about general habits, we generally tend to use simple present tense. Now, how do we use simple present tense? So, what is the formula by which you use simple present tense? It's nothing but subject plus V1 with or without the S. So it's written within brackets, meaning it is just, it's not an obligatory part. It is just a part that you can use when needed. So S is not something that's mandatory. And then you can have the rest of your sentence as it is. So the main idea is using V1, which is the base form of the verb. Now when I say base form of the verb, example of V1 verbs could be come, sit, go, play. These are examples of V1 verbs. And these V1 verbs will take the S when they come along with singulars. For example, when I say she, it becomes she comes, she sits, he goes, it plays. Alright? So that's how you use it when you have singulars. So when it is singular, you use the S or the ES, and when it is plural, you don't use anything, you just use the base form of the verb. Now, let's look at some example sentences. For example, the boys play daily. The girl talks a lot. Alright, so these are examples of simple present tense. Now we'll go into the details of it, like where do you use these sentences? The first place where you can use these sentences is when you're talking about habits. When I talk about habits that I'm actually used to, or something that I do on a daily basis, habitual happenings. For such things, we generally tend to use the simple present tense. Let me give you an example. I brush daily, meaning it's something that I do on a daily basis. So we say I brush daily. Okay, and if in case I am a person who walks in the mornings, I can say I go for morning walks. Alright, so these are examples of simple present tense where you're talking about habits. Now, the second place where you can possibly use simple present tense is when you're talking about universal truths. Now, what are universal truths? Some facts that are identified and some facts that are accepted by everybody, those ones are called as universal truths. So, now when you're talking about universal truths, you generally tend to use the simple present tense. So when I say universal truths, the sun rises in the east. That's something that will never change. So for such universal truths, you generally tend to use the simple present tense. Sun sets in the west. You say sets because sun is singular and therefore you use the verb with the S form. I'll give you another example now. The planets revolve around the sun. Now I say revolve because we're talking about planets. Planets is plural, so we use revolve. Planets revolve around the sun. Now, the third condition where you can probably use these ones are when you're giving instructions. When you're giving instructions to somebody, you generally tend to use the simple present tense. Now, when I say instructions, so probably somebody is cooking. They call you and ask you for an instruction. What do you say? Add salt. Mix everything well. So these are instructions. Or probably if you're walking down the street, You ask somebody where the museum is. What do they say? Go straight, turn left. So these are instructions. So all instructions are basically in the present tense form, simple present tense. Add salt, turn left. So these are examples of instructions. Now moving on, the fourth place where you can use this tense form is when you are actually talking about pre-decided events. Now, when I say pre-decided events, the timing is fixed. The time period of these actions is fixed. The time when it actually happens is fixed. So, in such conditions, you generally tend to use the simple present tense. For example, the meeting starts at 3 p.m. So, when I say starts, it is something again that is fixed. It is already decided that the meeting will start at 3 p.m. One more example could be the school reopens on June 13th. So again, this is a fixed event. The school is likely to reopen on this particular date. So therefore, we actually use the simple present tense. Then the last and the final example will probably be when you are giving a commentary. Now I write it down here. The fifth place where you can actually use simple present tense is when you are giving commentaries. And when I say commentary, most of us probably are cricket lovers. In fact, I love cricket, so I watch a lot of cricket. Now, what happens is generally when something happens, it is narrated or it is being told using the simple present tense. For example, Virat Kohli hits a century. Already it is done. But still, we tend to use the simple present tense when we are giving a commentary of something that is happening at the present. So, Virat Kohli hits a century. Or another example could be Messi passes the ball. Messi, if it is football, Messi passes the ball. It's already done. But then we generally tend to use the simple present tense when it is a commentary. So these are examples or instances where you can actually use the simple present tense. And for the simple present tense, you actually have this particular formula, which is subject plus V1 verb with or without the S and then the rest of the sentence. So this is with simple present tense. This is the first tense form that we've looked at. So it's simple present tense and this is the usage of simple present tense.